Hey, everybody. Howdy, howdy, howdy. Good morning. Just getting some couple of things set up here. Hopefully, everybody is doing well. Can you guys hear me? Make sure this is coming in loud and clear. Hey, Ryan. All right, cool. Oh, I have not had my coffee yet, but I wanted I wanted to jump on here and do a live stream and kind of tackle a couple of things that have been on my mind ever since I posted the what was it? Dumb things the audiophiles say, and then the recent, Soundstage is a lie. And I think that, you know, um, I think that most of the viewers out there enjoyed what I had to say, and there's nothing for me to even chat about, right? With that being said, there have been quite a few comments, even some emails that started to show up that I wanted to kind of address and just talk about for a few minutes and make sure that if I wasn't actually clear in the video that I would be clear now. And so that's what the live stream is for today is, and also I wanted to be able to answer any questions that you guys might actually have. So that's the plan for today. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Sub annihilation. I'm doing great, man. Thank you for asking. It's actually raining outside. We're finally getting some rain here in Texas. It's been a very dry year, and yeah, it's great. You negative? Nah, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm being negative, but words like condescending have come up, and I think with the dumb things the audiophiles say, I was asking for it, and I knew that there was going to be some folks out there, um, some audiophiles that might see things or hear things different, than I do. That, especially, I think where I really I was really asking for it is PRaT, which is pace, rhythm, and timing. And that is something that many audiophiles like, oh yeah, that's a thing for sure. Some systems have PRaT and some don't. And for me, I've never been able to unpack that in any kind of a logical way that you have decided that your system now has we're talking about pace, rhythm, and timing in the music, right? So, I'm laughing because I just can't quite wrap my head around this in any kind of a logical way that your system has pace, rhythm, and timing, and then others might not, and if they if they upgrade their amplifier or their DAC, let's get into the weeds and say, it's about ones and zeros and perfect timing and this and that, that now you're gonna have pace, rhythm, and timing. And I just gotta be honest with you. I've never once experienced that. And so someone's asking which part of the US that I'm based in. I'm in Texas. South Texas coastal. So I'm way up north. I'm just on the border of Oklahoma here, Oklahoma City, Wichita Falls, Texas. So I'm way up here. Yeah. Yeah. This post right here, right out of the gate, is exactly kind of where my mind is at. It says, "You're never negative," which sometimes I can be a little bit negative, but it says, "You're yourself. Everyone has a point of view." Um, that's it, right? So it's like I actually welcome and I'm totally fine with any kind of discussion that any kind of audiophile wants to have. I'm not I try to be open-minded enough to have to even entertain to even entertain some of the most bizarre and crazy audiophile things that are out there. And the truth is that I've tried a lot of them. It's like you're like, "Well, let me give this a go and see what happens." I'll tie moon rocks to my cables and see what happens. In that video, in fact, one of the examples that I give is like lifting cables off the ground when the ground has already been lifted. And so I said it that way because it was based upon my own experience that I'm just not, you know, saying something that I don't know anything about. I'm saying something that I tried. So I actually took the time to first I made cable elevators, right? And I was like, I'm not going to spend even a cent on cable risers. I'm not going to do it. And so I like woodworking and stuff, and so I went out and I made some cable risers, and I got them like 6 feet off the ground, and threw them into the system, and I could not tell any difference at all, none. But my house is already raised off the floor. It's one of the reasons why I have footfall issues, and so that's why I always try to be careful with my words that I said trying to lift cables off the ground that are already off the ground, meaning you might not be doing anything. And you might not, and that was my experience, is it didn't change anything at all, nothing. So, yeah, good old cable lifters. And yet at the same time, um, you know, I haven't tried cable lifters in an environment where, the house is on slab concrete. I haven't tried that, so I can't speak to that. And I would entertain the conversation and I would try it because then it's like, okay, well, I've given it a shot and, now I can have an opinion. With a lot of that stuff though, and it's been years since I have even touched the topic of cables. And I just feel like when we get into these like tweaky type things like doing cables and things like that, my experience has been that so many folks, so many audiophiles that are reaching out. They're like, I'm thinking about buying some cables and this and that. And I'm always going to entertain it. Like, okay, cool. I've been down this road many, many times and I have my own thoughts and opinions, but tell me more. Like, tell me about your system and, send me pictures and, I want to see your room and your setup. And I got to be honest, like probably 8 out of 10 times, there is just a wonky, weird room, and I understand that I'm not bashing them for their living arrangement, like, we can't all be blessed with a freaking listening room, and I totally understand that, but it doesn't change my point here that I see kind of a wonky room, usually an odd shape, and I will never, ever, 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 ever see acoustic treatment anywhere on the walls. And often I see speakers that are slammed up against the wall, and I'm like, "Man, before we start talking about cables, why don't you try lots? Why don't you try pulling those speakers away from the walls and, try some different, positioning techniques?" And a lot of times the response is always the same. It's always like, "Oh, okay. Okay. All right, thanks, Ron. I appreciate it." And then 2 weeks later, I get an email and it's like, "Hey, man, I bought those cables and they don't really make that much of a difference." Like, and you didn't change your room, did you? So, I wanted to kind of jump into for those that are just jumping in, by the way, welcome. We're doing a live stream just kinda talking about, have I been a negative Nancy as of late? And have I been condescending? There's been, 2 back-to-back videos that I've done, one about dumb things that audiophiles say, and we're kinda chatting about cable lifters and cables and things like that. And I just wanted to make it clear that it's okay to have a different point of view, and it's okay to have a different opinion, and it's okay to think differently about hi-fi and what you've tried and what works for you, and that's all great. I'm always gonna share what my experience is and what I've noticed, and the only one that is gonna get real dicey in that video, like I said, is pace, rhythm, and timing because it's just one thing that has always just eluded me, and I'm like, I just I understand what you're saying when you say pace, rhythm, and timing. I understand completely exactly what you're saying that you're now having an emotional response to this music and you're like tapping your toes and you're like, "Oh man, yeah, pace, rhythm, and timing. You know, this rig's got it, man. This but Bob's across the street, man, it sounds awful." Like, well, can't we just say that you just happen to like the way your system sounds? And you just don't like the way that his system sounds. Like, you don't need to start saying, like, it's because your system now has this inherent ability to take all the musicians that have already been pre-recorded, mixed, mastered, you know, spit into your system, and what you're hearing is them now playing perfectly in time. And over at Bob's house, I'll tell you, John Lennon, he can be a handful over at Bob's house. Sloppy rhythm player. You know, it's just ridiculous. So, anyways, the other one that I mentioned was Soundstage is a lie. And I changed the title this morning. I changed it because I didn't necessarily do it under pressure, but I was like, okay, what I actually say in context in that video isn't necessarily saying that all Soundstage is a lie. What I'm trying to say is that, again, based on my experience working with so many audiophiles with like lots and speaker setup and things like that, there are so many guys and gals out there that might have a favorite rock album that they chose for lots. This is the example that inspired that entire video. They picked, oh heck, I can't even think of anything right off the cuff, but they picked whatever their favorite rock album is, right? And you know, it's a modern rock multi-track, you know, recording. And they're playing it back and they're like, "Ron, dude, I'm loving this lots video and I'm trying to set up my speakers to where I have this like three-dimensional soundstage. I'm trying so hard to give you to do exactly what you described in this video, and I'm going insane, and I'm starting to think that you're just full of it, man, because no matter how hard I try, I can't get the drums behind the singer, and I can't get the singer in front of the drums. Yeah, I do have the singer dead center, but you know, even the guitars, there's sometimes where a guitar plays over here, but then I hear a weird effect outside of the realm of the the guitars, and I don't know what that is, and they're confused and they're frustrated, and the video that I posted about Soundstage is a lie is doing my best, and I've thought about this for a long time. It's doing my best to explain what's going on in that particular situation and why, no matter how hard you try, no matter what you do, speaker setup, whatever, nothing about that particular, you know, song is going to magically snap into place and things are going to just start behaving in a way to where there is that natural lifelike soundstage as if there really is a drummer back there, and you know, all of these different things that, you know, that we crave as audiophiles. So that is that was the entire point that I was, you know, hoping to make in that video with soundstage, and I didn't even tackle depth because I was like, you know what, this is gonna get from tricky to even trickier if I even try jumping into that. So, in that video, essentially what I did is I just started talking about when we're talking about, like, multi-track, modern day multi-track recording, which is something that I do, something I'm very familiar with. I don't do it professionally, let's not get I just sounded like a complete idiot right there. I have done as a hobby multi-track recording. Um, Prior to New Record Day and many, many, many years ago, I did go to school for studio engineering. I thought I wanted to be a studio engineer, and then I realized that you have to be smart, and so I dropped out of that, and then I created a YouTube channel. So, um, here's the thing. With multi-track recording, as I expressed in the video, it's a lot of times, most of the time, close miking, guitar cabs typically pretty dang close to the cabinet. And, I remember this conversation that I had with, this guy that came over to my house. This is not a joke. I can't even make this up. He came over to my house and he was auditioning the Spatial Audio Sapphires, and he wanted to listen to Sapphires, and he saw that I had a turntable set up, and he's like, "Hey man, do you have any Pink Floyd?" And I was like, "Who do you think I am? Yeah, of course I have Pink Floyd, you know?" And so I was like, "Do you wanna hear original UK Dark Side of the Moon, or do you wanna hear my favorite, which is actually the Japanese cut? Like, which one do you wanna hear?" And he's like, "Well, let's check out your favorite cut." And so I put it on and I'm playing Dark Side of the Moon. And there was this particular track, I don't remember exactly what it was. I think it might have been Time. I can't remember, but this particular track where it's playing and this guy's like really getting into it. He's bobbing his head and we're having a great time, and really sweet guy, really nice guy. And you know, we're listening and he's like, "Oh, oh, 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 stop, stop, Ron, stop, stop." And so I'm like, "Okay." And so I lift the needle. I'm like, "What's up?" He's like, "Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Just like a minute ago." I was like, "Hear what?" "I've heard this album more times than I can count. What did you hear?" And he's like, "Ron, David Gilmour, I could hear David Gilmour actually take a step forward for just a moment. Maybe he was repositioning his guitar, and then he took a step back." What? I don't wanna make fun of this guy. Um, People hear a lot of things that they might mistake for other things, but with that, I'm sitting there thinking about, because I've taken the time to, like, because 'cause I'm obsessed with Pink Floyd, really obsessed. I've read over as many notes and articles that talk about the recording process of Dark Side of the Moon. It's one of the most famous recorded, albums in rock history. Um, I'm obsessed over it. And I'm sitting there thinking about, you thought that David Gilmour with his black Strat taking a step forward or back or moving the guitar around, which the chances are he was actually probably sitting, right? But if he did that, that the guitar cabinet in an isolated area with an SM57 inches away from it is going to change, or you're going to hear that change of him taking. I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. So, anyways, the the point is that I think that a lot of audiophiles and viewers of mine might be looking, or they might have been confused as to how to get Soundstage, as I sometimes describe in some of my reviews, or how I described it in the Lots video. They might be confused, and they might be thinking like, "Well, how in the heck am I supposed to do that? How do I actually do that?" And for me, it has to start with the right recording. And so, as I was mentioning before I kinda, told that story about that guy, if you're starting with, like, a modern day multi-track recording, somebody actually, I'm looking over here, somebody mentioned Pearl Jam. Again, one of my favorite bands. Another great example, like, you go back to listen to, like, even 10. It's gonna be hard to get, like, a perfect real, it's just tough to get that spooky, we're talking, like, not kind of convincing, but we're talking, like, I've got like goosebumps because it sounds like so three-dimensional in here that it's just crazy. You have to start with the right recording. And I don't know if John from Devore Fidelity, who is a guy that I've met briefly at a show. He probably won't even remember, as many years ago. He released a video just yesterday, and it was a bit of a rant about, Soundstage is definitely real. It's not fake. And I don't I had a hard time because I watched the whole thing, and I had a hard time thinking, like, I don't know if this was just happenstance that he released that video, or if it was like a response video without saying it was. But I wanted to mention that video because I watched it, and this is where things are gonna get complicated, that I actually agree with everything that he said in the video. I'm like, "I'm trekking with you, man." There's no, this is not a situation. Maybe he just saw my thumbnail and he's like, "Oh, no, not one of these guys." But either way, what he was describing is that there are ways in which, some often even analog, like we're talking like old school analog, in real time recording musicians, maybe dumping it onto 2 track, maybe even doing some kind of a multi-track, but doing it like in a live type of a setting. And any type of processing is done in real time. I mean, it's a very sophisticated, and there's a lot of art involved in recording that way. And in those examples, you definitely can get a very spooky, lifelike type soundstage. And he's right. It's one of the reasons why, in the video near the end, I was like, where do we go from here? Does this mean that it's all bad? That we just throw away all, yeah, time to just give up on this whole audiophile stuff? No, heck no. No, not even kind of sort of, a little bit close. Hold on, let me turn on my do not disturb here. Sorry about that, guys. Hold on. No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that we're just gonna throw away all of our systems. Um there are there are albums out there. There are audiophile labels out there. There are even non-audiophile labels out there. There are just some amazing, great recordings that will give you the illusion, the stereo image illusion of there's a band in the room. And I'm obsessed with it. I don't want anyone to think that that the 1 plus 1 of that video equals that I'm giving up on soundstage. Heck no. No. It's me trying to help my viewers understand that, if you're like, there was a couple of comments that I loved where, like, man, thanks for doing this video, because I've been going crazy. I've been listening to these, albums that they like, and I can't get a soundstage out of it. And now, granted, we could take a look at, the system and the setup, and there's a lot of things that we could do to improve it, but I'm willing to bet you that the chances are that whatever that particular person is listening to might not have what I have described as soundstage. It might not be able to do it in the first place. It wasn't born to do it. So, that kind of opens up the conversation. I wanted to be able to leave some space for you guys to ask any other questions. One of the biggest questions that I wanted to tackle first was, this came up a lot in the video about soundstage, um, is, what about depth? You talked about panning left and right. Depth you really didn't dive into, and I didn't, because it's a little bit trickier. Now, with depth, there's a couple of different things that you can do in the studio to give that illusion. Now, let's not even talk effects. Let's just talk about like organic things you can do with that raw audio. First thing that you can do is you can be careful about how you EQ it, and whatever you want to poke out of the mix, you could elevate it. So it's amplitude. You're making a particular frequency stand out more then another frequency. And a lot of times in the studio, when they do this, it might be an electric guitar or whatever the case may be. It doesn't matter. What happens in the stereo plane is this is what happens. You can gain a little bit of a depth by just changing the amplitude. As you carve out the EQ and you're focused on a particular frequency band and then you're increasing the amplitude, that particular instrument absolutely can move forward or give the illusion that it's been moved forward. And the opposite can be said, that if you continue dumping low end and you have something that is typically like higher in the registry, um, higher in the bandwidth, excuse me, and you lower the amplitude, you can pull it back. And so these are some of the tricks that can be done in the studio to create that illusion of depth. And that's even before you get into like more advanced things, messing around with phase. That you can do, I would say, more extreme examples of depth. So, with polarity and phase and playing with that, you might have everything in the stereo plane here, and you start messing around with phase or polarity on a trumpet, and you can make him sound like he's in a different county. You can do things like that. And so um that covers depth. So with that, I wanted to open it up to questions that you guys have. And I also wanted to lead in by saying, don't be discouraged by either of those videos. I'm not trying to discourage anybody. Condescending might be replaced with confidence. You have to understand that when I do these videos, it takes some time to get into character, if you will, and depending on what I'm talking about and what I'm saying, my cadence and speech, my demeanor, everything will shift or change to make that video have a bit more impact. And so there is maybe a little bit of acting involved, I think. I think that you're putting on a little bit of a show when you're doing that. And I think that some of the guys, especially with the dumb things that audiophiles say, they'd be like, this guy's just being a prick. He's being a jerk. He's being condescending. And I understand completely why you would feel that way. I want you to know that if you take a look at the entire library catalog of New Record Day, you're going to have a hard time finding a lot of those videos because, well, they don't exist. Those videos are few and far between. And every now and then, even I have to poke fun at some audiophiles. I have to poke fun because I'm like, sometimes it cracks me up and I find it funny. And so, anyways, I'm gonna stop blabbering. I'm gonna turn to the comments and let's see what you guys have for me. Sorry about that long rant. I'm gonna scroll up. I'm gonna see if anything really stands out, specific examples or questions or things like that. So let's go ahead and get some questions going, and I'll see if I can help you. Oh, before we move on, man, dude. Oh, by the way, thank you for the super chat, Mike. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you. So when I released the video of the Hegel stack of insanity, there were a number of threads in there saying, dude, shit audio tier. For crying out loud, Ron. Like, we can't afford a $20,000 power amp and a $10,000 preamp. And guess what? I can't either. So, hey, shit audio tier. And guess what? I have tried and tried and tried. I've reached out a number of times and they made it so clear, and they're great to work with, but they made it clear, dude, we can't do the tier. We're not going to do the tier. We made up our mind that at least for this first round, we're not going to do any kind of reviews. Well, I took the screenshots of just ironically folks just saying, hey, man, tier, tier, tier. I sent them over to Shit Audio and I was like, asking for a friend. for friends, and they're sending me the tears. This week, they are sending me the tears. So I am so excited about that. If I play my cards right, I might have them before anybody. I think. I know that John did like a kind of like a long, like a Lord of the Rings trilogy video about shit audio in the tier. I didn't watch it because it was just a long video. But I think I'm going to be one of the first reviews, which is really exciting. Super, super exciting. So, yeah, I cannot wait. And I forget the name of their fancy pants crazy EQ. I was like, if there's room in the box, just throw it in there. And then I can then show you guys where EQ can help. I mean, here I was just talking about, EQ is dumb and it fixes everything. It's just, let's talk about that for a second. That wasn't even a response to folks that like EQ. No, no. Like if you like EQ, that I have no issues with that. Like I'm fine with EQ. That was a response to a lot of folks that will get on and watch a video of me talking about a speaker, and I'm getting into measurements. I'm talking about phase relationships. And, in one particular example, the woofer and the tweeter are not in phase. They're out of phase and it's a complete mess. It's a disaster. And there will be that guy that leaves that comment saying, well, yeah, you can just EQ it. And it's like, you can just EQ it. That's not going to fix the phase relationship between the woofer and the tweeter. You might like what it does, but no, it's not. That's not how these things work. So, anyways, Shit Audio is sending their flagship EQ. I forget the name of it, and this was their idea. They're like, "Hey, you want to check out this, new Freya Novel Freya N takes new tube topology. Do you want to try that out?" And I was like, yes, I do. So that's on its way. Freaking awesome. All right. So super, super cool. All right. So we got some questions here. What are your thoughts on the famous video of Rick Beato calling BS on audiophiles in general? Seems like this soundstage conversation may intersect with some of his thoughts on the subject. Yeah, so big Beato fan here. I actually watch a lot of guitar related content. I do play guitar for joy outside of New Record Day. And so Rhett Shull, Paul Davids, you name it, that pedal show for sure. Nick and Dan, all of those guys are amazing, and also Beato. And in that video, he was tackling it from his perspective and his experience as literally like being in a studio. And there was nothing in that video that ruffled my feathers. I thought, you know what? Here's the deal, man. There are a lot of audiophiles out there, and this was, I think, one of the points, if I remember, it's been a while since I've watched it, that, will make the claim of hearing these little tiny little intricate details and, micro details and this and that. And he was like, I doubt you can even tell a difference between a CD and like a really well-recorded MP3, like really, really well recorded, mixed mastered, those aren't his exact words. And again, it's been a while, but he was talking about like, the challenge would be, can you even tell the difference between something that would be high resolution or on CD versus MP3s? Now, there has been a lot of those listening tests that have come out. I think Tidal did one a while back. I think that, I don't know if Qobuz has done one where you're trying to discern and hear whether or not you can tell differences in resolution. And I took those tests and I did okay. It wasn't like 100%, man. I nailed it every time. I think I was maybe in the 70s or 80%, somewhere in there. And so on some of those, I was able to, hear a difference. And again, this could even be translated to stuff that we even have on something that I'm very familiar with, YouTube. I do sound clips, and as soon as it gets thrown out into the YouTube universe, there's compression involved. And so from his perspective and the way that he's looking at things, nothing about that ruffled my feathers, and I think he made a lot of fine points to answer your question. So, yeah. What happened with the boo cards? Nothing. Nothing happened with them. That those are great. They're fine. I know that I've kind of sort of dropped the ball in terms of organization and priority. It's important to understand that every single reviewer has a different way of doing things. And this is maybe where I could grow as a reviewer and do a better job. But when it comes to whatever reviews, especially that I'm doing lately, I kind of have to tackle it from what is inspiring me right now. And the reason why is then I feel more content with the final product, meaning what I'm saying, how I say it, how the review is coming across. And so some of these reviews just take longer than others, not because something is wrong, but because I'm not necessarily feeling it. I'm not inspired to circle back around to the boot carts yet. And what makes it where I need to grow and I need to manage this a lot better is where it gets tricky is that in the in between, I might have a time sensitive item come in, like the Hegel stack, where Anders is like, "You have them for 2 weeks, man." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, now I have to focus on this. I have to get this done." So nothing is wrong with the boot carts. They're fantastic. If you want to know my opinion right now, and for any of the diehards that even check out the live streams, thank you by the way. They're great. They're phenomenal. I think some of the bigger questions that will that will come my way for sure is you know, boot carts versus encores. What do you think about that? And it's gonna be a sidestep conversation. I don't think that there is a clear winner of those two speakers. Um, with the boot carts, their strengths are gonna come into play when it comes to do you want like top to bottom resolution and pretty dang serious deep bass. I mean, you could you could convince somebody that you've got towers and you don't with the boot carts. With the encores, no. You cannot do that. They lose. They lose in that fight. So that is a clear, hey, boot cart wins. Encores lose. If we flip that coin and we start talking about, here we go. We're going to talk about Soundstage, right? Whether it's fake or real, or whether it's fake and sounds real, doesn't matter. We're talking about Soundstage and things that happen within the stage, and also information in what I describe as the time domain, time related information. These are key areas that Danny, as a designer, focuses a lot of his attention on. He is after that. He is craving that three-dimensional performance. And I do believe that the clear winner of those two speakers in that arena is the encores. So now we have a one for one. We have, serious top to bottom resolution when it comes to bass. And then we have maybe a clear winner, not even maybe, I think a clear winner in Soundstage. Pick your poison. They're both very, very good. Mid-range might be a tie. It might be a tie. I think that the boot carts sound a little bit chestier, maybe a little bit more than the encores. The encores might be a little bit leaner. Um, so hopefully that helps. Video looks 720p. So I am live streaming and I'm shooting 1080p. So this isn't, I only have so much bandwidth and it gets a little bit tricky when you do these things. So, yeah. All right. Looking at Phono preamps under $250, Cambridge Solo, Z Phono, Shit Manny 2, iFi Zen, or others. I would go with either the iFi Zen or the Manny 2 of those. How warm does the shit Ager run? Can you tell me Class AB amps that you have used that run hot, and by contrast, Class AB that run cool? Most most Class AB amps will get warm. I don't I don't think that I haven't had a whole lot of Class AB amps that get hot. Tube amps and Class A amps, those can get hot. Um, and I would say that the Aegers get hot. You leave those things on for a while. It's continuity Class A. It's not traditional Class A. I I think shit audio just makes up words. It's probably just Class A and they just made up a fancy word. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. It's a real thing, but you can go and read about it. It's different. Does it get hot? Hell yeah, it gets hot. You could probably fry an egg on an Ager. Not that hot. Clo- It'd be a runny egg. Randy tried it. It was a mess. Don't do it. All right. Why do the phase relationship between a woofer and a tweeter have to be the same? They're supposed to be different. They came out of the instrument at different times at different levels. Because a tweeter and a woofer is not the same as instruments that are recorded. That answers your question. So what's happening in your mind is you're trying to compare two different things that are not even close to the same. When it comes to the phase relationship of a woofer and a tweeter meeting, and you don't have one that is out of phase, what happens is you build a linear bridge so that all of the instruments within the bandwidth are playing in a linear fashion, meaning that as we're hearing a trumpet, as we're hearing a trombone, as we're hearing, vocals, as we're hearing a guitar, everything is going to be able to fit within this space. And if you had a hole in the response, you had a phase related issue, then at a particular, point in the bandwidth, something is going to drop, right? Something is going to be pulled down. Or if you were just bad at designing the crossover, not necessarily phase related, and you have a peak, that trumpet is going to be blaring and it's going to be too loud. And so hopefully that answers your question. Ray, if you have any other questions about that, just let me know down below. It's possible that the mic is clipping. Let me turn that down a little bit. I apologize to you. Hopefully that's a little bit better. I do have um I do have some effects on, so you're hearing some compression and also a noise gate. So if you're hearing like the noise gate pump or turn on and off, that might be confused with clipping. I apologize. Howdy and happy Monday. Howdy to you, Ace of Spades. I'm most excited about the KLH Model 7 as that should be the perfect fit in my room, budget, and preferences. That's awesome, man. I've had the KLH Model 5s for like 17 years, and I'm finally going to get around to reviewing them, and I like them. I like them. I know that it's kind of hit and miss with a lot of the opinions out there, but I got to say I'm quite fond of the Model 5s. I've been listening to more vinyl recently, which is weird. I mean, my channel's New Record Day, so you would think that I would listen to vinyl every now and then. And I gotta say, man, the vinyl, just listening to anything on vinyl and the KLH Model 5s kind of cranked, maybe a little bit louder, maybe smoking up some barbecue. Good things happen, man. And I don't want to dismiss the KLH Model 5s as like background music. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is they're a lot of fun. I mean, it's just a fun sounding speaker. There's just some kind of a charm about these speakers. And I'm like, I get it, man. I get it, and it kinda pulls me out of reviewer mode saying, "Oh, it's got a crappy, cheesy aluminum dome tweeter, and it's probably got really cheesy parts." I don't even care. I don't even care. I don't care because it's just fun. It's just a fun speaker. So, yeah. Is there any sense in upgrading to an H390 from my current H190? I have the S400 Mark II. Um, I don't know. I will know pretty soon. I obviously spent time with the H390 and I thought it was badass. It's just a great, powerful, insane, integrated amplifier. I don't know about the H190, but I do have some of the more affordable stuff from Hegelen that might give me a better idea as to what you can expect. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Makes sense to associate JBL L100 Classics with my Yamaha AS2200. Bill, let me tell you something, my friend. You throw that combo together and good things are going to happen. There's no doubt in my mind. We're talking about an AS2200, one of the just most ripping integrated amps that I've spent time with, and I know it quite well. You throw that, with some JBL L100s, and you're gonna have a party started in no time. And if you're like into that kind of, classic vintage vibe, that retro vibe, dude, I would be at your house in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And I would we would grill some steaks like real men do, you know? So yeah, totally, man. That would be a killer combo for sure. Christian is saying, by the way, Christian, appreciate you, man. Long time new record day viewer. Holy cow. Um, Ron, we need you to review the Techniques digital amps. I agree. Not only that, but I want to review some of their turntables. So I'm gonna have to reach out to Bill and be like, "Hey, dude, let's party. Let's have some fun." So Christian, I can make that happen. So I'm trying to clear out the rest of the stuff that I've kind of had over the last year. It's been a very bumpy road, lots of ups and downs over the last year, but I'm finally getting my mojo back and some confidence back, and I'm trying to clear out everything that I need to clear out before I tackle new projects. But yeah, for sure, definitely. Well, I couldn't. Okay, Ray is saying, "Well, I couldn't." You well, I couldn't. You have that naturally from the people playing the instruments. Ray, I'm not sure what you're asking there. I think you're still stuck on. Ray was asking earlier, why does there need to be why does the phase relationship of a tweeter and a crossover, need to be correct, when you have different instruments playing, like different instruments are playing different things. Like why does that matter? I mean, they all sound different. And I was trying to explain like that's two different things totally. So, but I'm not sure what you mean. If you want to elaborate on that, maybe reformulate your question. What is your outlook on GANFET tech? Any promise or just marketing jargon? GANFET. GANFET. Oh, oh, you're talking about GAN amps, Class D GAN amps? Yeah, no, they're actually at least the ones that I've played with, they're freaking awesome. The stuff from Orchard Audio, our Star Crimson amplifier. If I'm It's been a while, it's been a minute. Really, really nice. And then also the stuff from Purify. Good luck. Good luck stuffing a bunch of like, Class D hating, snooty audiophiles in there and having them say, "Oh, it's definitely Class D." Dude, no way. It's that is a really, really fine sounding amp. Like really, really nice. So yeah, love the GAN amps. The stuff that I've messed around with, totally awesome. Roar the Tiger says Yamaha and JBL 100 combo may be considered a bit bright. I agree. Might be. You do have some flexibility with the L100s in terms of placement. You might not end up having those on axis. You might actually having those maybe at your shoulders or beyond that. With the Yamaha amps, upper mid range, it can be a little bit forward, a little bit more in your face, a little more rock and roll. They don't apologize. That's totally true. So that's actually a good heads up. I appreciate you saying that, roar of the tiger. Mike is asking, Mike Huntington asks, how meticulous are you when it comes to speaker setup? Like, do you make sure the speakers are perfectly level? Do you use distance laser to get everything spot on? Mike, have you been watching me? You've been watching me. Yeah, I'm crazy about it. I don't think it's healthy. um, I I spend too much time thinking that thinking that an eighth of an inch might matter. Too much time. I'm very, very crazy about it. Yes, I have a little Bosch, laser tape measure that I use, and I'm sitting there and I'm like obsessing over it. I'm exact from the walls, I'm crazy about it, dude. So I take it very, 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 very seriously for sure. Yes. Now I will say that when I'm hunting, let's call it hunting, when I'm hunting for the spot, I'm doing big moves. I'm like swinging things around and moving things around, and I'm not worried about getting things tack sharp until I find that moment where things start to kind of fall in line and click into place. And then at that point, I'm like, okay, game on. So yeah, yeah. Hey Ron, I hope all is well. Yes, everything is well. Do you think the CD format is in for the long haul? I hope so. Yeah, I think so. I hope so. I mean, um, this is so here we go. Like this is one of those weird audiophile things that I've experienced, and you can have a differing opinion, and I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to, call you a dodo brain, and I'm okay with you calling me a dodo brain, but to this very day, I am convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that if we're comparing, let's just say cookie cutter streaming, Tidal, Qobuz, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, if we're calling just typical everyday streaming compared to just a good old fashioned CD, I I am one of these nutsos that will tell you I do believe that the CD offers quite a bit more most of the time. I think they just sound better. It sounds more lifelike, more natural, more realistic. There's something going on there that I am convinced that if we're talking about streaming, and man, we could really get into the weeds. Is it because it's going through networking cables and through routers and this and that? I don't have a clue. I'm not smart enough to know. All I can tell you is that I've done the A and Bs. I've tried it. I've tried it even when I'm not even trying, meaning I'm not even working. I'm just noticing it. So it's more of like an organic type thing that happens. Like, holy crap, this CD sounds better. So I I hope that's not the case. I hope that CDs are around for a good while. Yeah. Maybe I missed it, but did you miss the construction on your new listening room? No, you did not miss it. I'll be doing an update. I haven't even started the framing yet. That's next. So I'll be doing an update on the studio here real soon. Ryan says, Ron, can you please get in some new Prime Audio Class D amps? They use their own Class D module, toroidal transformers, small form factor, in particular, new Prime ST10. Ryan, I will do my best. Do me a favor, bro. Just shoot me an email and remind me because I'll forget. Just Ron at New Record Day. Just shoot me an email and be like, "Hey, man, new Prime amps. Don't forget." I'll reach out to him. Thomas Watcher, thank you so much for the super chat. Means a lot. Really helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Hey, friend, thank you for going live. Your videos are always fab. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Let me see here. Ron, have you heard anything from Human Speakers, a modern take on EPI handmade in the States? No, Time Rival, I have not. Shoot me an email, Ron at New Record Day. Send me a link to Human Speakers and I'll check them out. Thank you for your reply on the JBL and Yamaha AS2200. One question I forgot. May I put a subwoofer for bass at lower volumes? Yeah, of course you can. Yep. Christian, are you following the rise of Jay's Audio Lab YouTube channel? What are your thoughts? You know what? I've seen Jay's videos recommended and suggested. Um, at first I thought he was just like a bodybuilder that was like bench pressing audio equipment. I was like, that's dumb. Why would you do that? Um, I haven't checked out his channel. I don't really have a comment, good or bad. Um, I don't know. What do you guys think? I know that some of the commentary that I've heard is that he has really, really expensive stuff that comes in that he checks out. I don't know if he dabbles even in mid-price gear or anything like that. I'm not too sure. I'm kind of speaking out of my rear end, so I haven't been following. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm curious what you guys think. Do you have any experience with the Manly Chinook? Yes, I have. It's freaking awesome. They have a Mark One, a Mark Two, and Special Edition. Not sure if they are all basically the same or much different performance. Email Manly, uh, email Manly and ask them, and they will tell you. They are a straight up company. They do both studio stuff as well as audiophile stuff, and they are freaking awesome. I'm a big fan. Hey, Bill, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Um, Reach out to Manly, ask them. They will tell you what the differences are. I can tell you the Chinook is very, very good. I would call it a sleeper. It's a sleeper phono that a lot of people might just pass by thinking like, "Oh, it's rack mount. That's just studio stuff." And hey, you know what? Let's let them think that. Like, let's keep this a secret. The Chinook is insanely good. It's very, 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 very good. So, any chance to review Name audio equipment in the future? Yes, I've been wanting to get my hands on Name for quite some time. I'll reach out to them as soon as I mentioned already in the live stream, clear out some of the stuff that I already have in house. I'll reach out to them and I'll make it happen. That's a huge beard. This old chestnut. Yeah. Yep. You know, it's really interesting how many people care about my grooming habits on YouTube. I have so many. I'm not talking about you, by the way. That's fine. I'm fine with that comment. But I have people that are honestly upset. I really like. I'm kind of confused. Like, there was this guy who's like, "You have to shave. You have to shave, Ron. Please, please shave, Ron. Please shave." And I'm like, no, I don't want to. My wife likes it. That is all that matters. So, any thoughts on Macintosh MA252 integrated amplifier and the Monitor Audio Gold 105G speakers? I can't speak to the Monitor Audio stuff. I can't speak to that particular integrated amplifier of Macintosh. I do like Macintosh. You know, they do have a sound, kind of a classic sort of vintage type sound. Not the last word when it comes to, you know, holographic hyper details or things like that. Not the last word when it comes to that, but they sound big and ballsy and badass. You know, so they're fun. I like Macintosh. A sense of pace can't exist, but gear can sound fun. Semantics aren't much fun, man. My second least favorite part of the hobby, right after the measurement police telling me what I can listen to. Yeah, I hear you, man. You know, and I wish there was just a bit more breaking of the bread amongst audiophiles. I know that, you know, humans tend to be pretty tribal and I'm human and I'm I'm pretty tribal. You get me on a rant about open baffle, and I won't shut up about it. Um, I just wish that we could at least hear each other out and be like, okay, man, you know, not my experience. That's your experience. That's cool. Sounds good, dude. I wish that we could do that. I wish we could. Let's just take a look here. Do you think the amount of music on streaming is spoiling your listening? Been feeling it overwhelming lately and end up listening to nothing. I've gone back to physical media and enjoying the tunes. Yeah, that's a good point. I actually kind of go through those ruts myself where I'm new release day like on Qobuz or Tidal, lately Qobuz. I'm just like clicking on stuff. I'm not even trying to listen to an album. I'm like looking for I don't even know what I'm looking for. It's like I'm going to hear something that's just going to blow my mind, maybe that first couple of notes it's like, "Oh man, I got to listen to this." So yeah, I do struggle with that, and what you're doing I think is the antidote to it. Is stop streaming, get back to like a media, a format that go back to music that you do appreciate, that you do love, and play the album. That's a good stopping point to that's a perfect antidote to doing that. I prefer this. Martin's in the chat. Hey Martin, I prefer the sound of the CDs versus streaming, even when streaming 2496. I do as well. Even when and I should have mentioned that, even when I am streaming high resolution, I still prefer the sound of CDs. I find them to just sound better. Yeah. Amplifier match for the KLH fives. I'm going to be talking about this. I don't know. I don't even know what the specs are. I haven't measured the KLH Model Fives. I have no idea what the impedance looks like, but I can tell you, holy cow, they seem like they need quite a bit of you know what to get them to do what I like. And I'll be talking about that as perhaps a downside to the fives is I feel like you got to give them some to get them to go, to really get them to loosen up and go. So, amplifier match, I would say if you're going in the direction of solid state, 100 watts or more. And if you're going tubes, perhaps 50 watts or more. Somewhere in that ballpark is what my guess would be. Keep speaking the truth. I haven't watched your videos for a while, and there's something different about you since the last time I watched. You seem to be more truthful about your true feelings. Ray, thank you. I appreciate that. I've always tried to be honest. Maybe in the early days of New Record Day when I was finding myself and like trying to figure this out, and we're talking like early days. I think that maybe I got a little too lost in the creative writing. And it's not that what I was saying wasn't true. I would just say that maybe I got a little too creative, a little too adventurous with words. And so I'm trying to pull that back a little bit and just say it like it is. And I think that that formula works better for you guys because then when I do say something is giving me fireflies in the soundstage and holy cow, this is unbelievable. You guys will know without a doubt he's not BSing. Like this doesn't sound like every other review that he's done, you know? And so it's growing, right? I mean, I'm trying to grow as a reviewer, and I appreciate you noticing that because that's what I'm striving for is, all right, man, did it really do that? What you just said, is that actually what happened? And if not, what actually happened? And so I'm going to try and do that. Yeah. All right, let's take a look here. Jay. Yes, Jay has favorably reviewed the XLS Encores. Hey, Martin, I think they were talking about Jay's Audio Lab. There's two different Jays out there. There's Jay's Yagi, and then Jay's Audio Lab. And Jay Ziyagi did favorably review the XLS Encores. He liked them quite a bit. Didn't at all surprise me. Yeah, XLS Encores, it's one of those speakers, and now that they do offer turnkey solutions, man, they're just that's a tough to beat speaker. They can't do everything. It seems like, you know, decent bass, mid bass and up. Good luck, Chuck. You got to fight on your hands. But if you're talking about you want a speaker that goes also in that opposite direction, digs down deep, then the encore then it becomes a debate. Like, okay, well, now we got to fight on our hands, and it's gonna be a bit more complex. So, yeah. Again, back to the super chat from Bill. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate that. Super chats are always welcome. That's awesome, and you are the best. All right, so here we go. Also used oh, this thing jumped on me. Hold on a second here. Mike is saying, also use the Bosch laser Ron and do the same as you. I even recently invested in a more expensive level that apparently is super reliable with accuracy. I might need medication. Dude, you and me both. You and I should start a business where we set where we set up speakers for customers. We'd be like, all right, well, we're here. You have a place where we can stay? We're gonna be here for about I don't know, four. What do you think, Mike? 4 to 48 weeks, and we'll be done. And then we'll be done with the first speaker, and then we'll move on to the next. It's like it's crazy. It's fun though. That's what this is all about. It's fun. Does a beard does a beard affect room sound like a baffle? Uh yeah, by 16%. It does. Grow a beard. Unless you don't want that 16%. Yeah, it it does. Oh my goodness. Um, I think Ron is talking about Jay's Yagi. No, when I was talking about Jay earlier, I was talking about Jay's Audio Lab. Jay's Yagi I know quite well, and uh, Jay I've known long enough to where when it was Next Best Thing Studio is what it was. I actually did a video with him. I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, man, I want to get to know you." And we did a podcast. I invited him on the show and we talked about like what he does and where he came from and all these things. And he's a really nice guy. I know that a while back, and I don't want to get into this. I did a video with GR Research that went a bit sideways, and it received quite a backlash. And I had to think about that for a long time. Those things have a big impact on me. Like really think through like, okay. And I know that bothered Jay quite a bit. And we've made peace, I think, since then. I think we've made peace. And I have no issues with with Jay Ziyagi and his channel. Um so we were just to catch up, we were talking about Jay's Audio Lab earlier, and they were asking, "What do you think about the rise of Jay's Audio Lab?" And I was like, "I haven't, I don't have an opinion. I thought he was just a bodybuilder that liked hi-fi." Um, I'm saying that joking. Let's not freak out. So that's that. Yeah. Hey Ron, like you, my speakers are pulled well into the room, 5 to 6 feet. That's awesome. And wondering if front wall treatment becomes less critical with that much distance. Thoughts on absorption versus diffusion there? Yeah, so this is debatable. Obviously, isolate and identify your first reflection points and your second reflection points. First reflection is going to be that using the mirror trick, you can figure out where is it hitting that wall first? And it is debatable whether or not you would want to go with diffusion there or if you want to go with absorption. That is debatable. I've tried both, and
I have discovered that depending on the environment, so depending on this listening room versus my previous listening room, my opinion changed. In this listening room, I like diffusion more on the first reflection. In the previous room, I liked absorption. Did I say that right? On this one, I like diffusion. Last one, I like absorption. And I think there's a reason for that. In the last room, I had a lot more hard surfaces. I had tile floor, all hard surfaces. The walls were taller. I had kind of a cathedral ceiling. So I had more room in there. And I think I had a little bit more ambience and air work into my advantage. And so treating the first reflections with absorption seemed to sound more, it sounded more natural to me. In this one, even though I do have hard floors, it's not tile, it's wood. And there's a lot of wood in that room. Behind the drywall is shiplap. And the room sounds warmer. It just sounds more dense. And so livening up that room, I'm able to do and get away with it. So Sean, this is of no help to you because it could just come down to just experimenting. But with your speakers away from the walls, room treatment is still very, very important. And I don't think that I would agree with somebody that would say it's less important than having speakers closer to the walls. I don't think I would say that. I would say that when you make the decision of putting speakers closer to the walls and you don't have room treatment, you're asking for it. You're asking for it because now you have boundary effects. You're going to have elevated bass. You're going to have all of these things that just happen as you make that call, as you make that decision. And I think they're both important. I just think that the function becomes more critical as speakers are closer to the wall. You have now you've shot yourself in the foot, so you better have some, room treatment. So, that's that. This may be a deep question, but shouldn't all digital signals be the same, just ones and zeros, that sound doesn't get altered until it hits the analog process? CD or streaming optical digital output? John, that's a profound question and probably way above my pay grade. The one so the ones and zeros debate is going to be one of those audiophile things where probably not gonna break any bread. We're gonna have name calling, and we're gonna have, the clause coming out saying, "It's not just ones and zeros," and other guys are gonna say, "It is just ones and zeros," and some guys will say, "Well, it's being sent through an analog cable," okay, but it's still digital information being sent through an analog cable. Like, it's just gonna go back and forth, so I'm not the one to really weigh in on that. Um, I don't really care all that much about that side of it. What I do care about is the end result, right? And so, how does the Madex sound? Let's answer that question. Sounds ridiculously great. Sounds very analog. It sounds amazing. How does this cheap, not cheap, mid-price DAC sound from China that has been measured, that does perfect ones and zeros, and it, does all of these things. It passed flying colors on all of these measurements from the guys out there that are smart enough and have the equipment to do it. How does that DAC sound? I'm thinking of two very specific examples here that I've done, right? Not very good. To my ears, not very good. So, it's nuanced, it's tricky. Those are the questions that I'm more interested in than rather than, like, how does this all work? How is this working? It's like, well, how does it sound? Like, can we start with that? How does it sound? What's actually happening? And so I'm talking about this like Lox G, DAC that I had in that stunning measurements. And I'm playing this thing and I'm like, you know what? It doesn't sound that great. It's not doing anything that is mind blowing or mind numbing or like, wow, now it all makes sense. It's all about the ones and zeros and measurements and things like that. Nah, nah, yeah. CT Warmouth, Chris, my buddy, he's in my live chat. Like Epic signature guitars, what would Ron Bernay's signature hi-fi component look like? What would it be? I'm gonna be honest with you, Chris. I would just sell it all and buy myself a Novo. I'd get myself a a Dennis Fano made Novo. That's what I would do. Or maybe, you know what? I'd get a broadcaster. I'd sell all this stuff and just get a broadcaster. That's what I would do. A legit broadcaster. Now we're talking. If not, wouldn't even the router affect streaming? John, it's debatable. That's the debate, you know? And there's going to be guys that will look at, sheets that might be right. I'm not trying to say they're not right. They might be right. They might look at a sheet and say, "No, it can't. It's not possible." But then there's going to be some guy saying, "Well, I've tried it and it does make a difference." And so those are question marks. Does a router matter? Does it make a difference? It's a question mark. You'd have to experiment. I don't know, man. Your beard, your body, but from an aesthetical point of view, your beard needs some trimming. All right, Teddy, I'll take that under advisement. Um, what characteristics of sound do you personally find the most compelling? Soundstage, if it's real, dynamics, resolution, accuracy, imaging, etc., etc. From the beginning of time to this very day, soundstage is king for me. I take it over tone. Um, I know a lot of audiophiles chase tone, and that's fine. I like tone. It's got to sound natural. But for me, when speakers lend themselves to hearing and playing back that three-dimensional sound field, fake or not, I don't care, and it sounds vivid, lifelike, as if you can reach out and touch stuff. That's what I'm going for. That's my cup of tea. That is number one on my list. Resolution is combined, obviously, in that. Dynamics is important, but I would say it's probably as important, maybe less important than even tone. Accuracy is important to me. Accuracy is kind of hard to tackle. I like using the word linear. Linear is not hard to tackle. Accuracy is like, what is accurate? What does that mean to you? What does that mean? That's very subjective. Linear moves in the direction of objective. I tend to like speakers that provide a linear response, not only in their frequency response, that's one piece of the puzzle, but they behave in a linear fashion in the horizontal plane as well as the vertical plane. Generally speaking, those are speakers that I tend to like more than speakers that do not exhibit those same characteristics. All right, here we go. Braid, braid the beard. Randy is always saying that. I might, maybe I will. Hey, Javier Hernandez. Man, 20 bucks. Holy cow. Thank you so much, man. I really do appreciate that. That is awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Danny measured the KLH Model Fives and found them quite competent. That's good. And it doesn't surprise me at all. Based on what I'm hearing, I haven't measured them myself. I don't rely on Danny's measurements. to tell me what to think or what I'm going to hear or even what I'm going to measure. I rely on what I do. It's my experience. And so that's great. I like them a lot. I think they're fantastic. I really, really like them. Why do different CD transports sound different on the same DAC? I haven't had that experience. I haven't messed around a whole lot with changing out transports. I have an Inuos Zenith, which basically just rips the CD right to the hard drive, and then I'm good to go. But I'm glad you've had that experience. And why does that happen? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. Let's just take a look here. Bye for now, Ron. Glad I caught you live. Martin, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. So on streaming, router speeds and router compression and uncompress the information could alter the signal before it even hits your system. John, I would say that's possible. If there's people in here that are smarter than me, which is probably everybody in here, want to answer that question, I, I would say that's a possibility. But again, these are things that I just don't know about. I don't know how that stuff all works. And so I don't like to die on the sword that you imagine how it works and then it becomes dogmatic for you. And I think that happens a lot with audiophiles is you in your mind create what you think is going on and then it becomes part of like this core belief structure. And I try not to do that. I try to experience things and then allow the experience to become part of those core experiences, and then I try to formulate my opinion based on that. So anyways, the best speaker ever seen is the Spycom F3 planar with 96 dB sensitivity and the planar down in 180 hertz. It's hybrid with a 12-inch Bema woofer like Martin Logan designed, made in Greece. Well, that's cool. I'd love to hear it. I imagine it's pretty pricey. But I would love to hear it. TJ, the stereo bargain file is here. Hey, Ron, I got the shit preamp on the way. Freya Noval on the way. Heck yeah, man. I got the Noval as well. If you're not subscribed to TJ has been a long time friend and supporter of New Record Day. He's great. He's hilarious. He's handsome. At least 3 times more handsome than the average man. And 4 times more handsome than yours truly. Awesome guy. Thanks for stopping by, TJ, man. I appreciate that. Let's take a look here. I'm also obsessed with speaker setup. I use a level Bosch laser, made a template for the speak. Oh man, this guy, he's got me beat. I even made a template of my speaker center point for the laser pointer. Also have round Avery sticker to mark point. Cruising RSX, you're showing us what's up, man. That is awesome. I was thinking about it, guys. In the new studio, obviously I'm going to have rugs down because I decided, and a lot of folks aren't going to like this, but it's my studio and I only have so much budget. I decided to just rough up the concrete. I didn't do it. My buddy Ryan, shout out to Ryan, by the way, roughed up the concrete. We sealed it. It looks so cool. It's killer, like all chipped and kind of cool looking. It's just neat looking. I'll show you guys. But roughed up the concrete. I'm going to have some rugs in there. And I was like, it'd be kind of cool. You think of like a basketball court with like the strips and the lines. What if I had custom tracks made for lots? So lots is actually built into the studio at all times, permanent. Like lay down some tracks. Dude, I'm thinking about doing it. It'd be killer. It'd be killer. Yeah. Yeah. New record day. I do have a question. How good are those quadratic diffusers behind the speakers and how tall should they be? Room is pretty big, floor standers. Quadratic diffusers work very well. You need to be mindful of what the materials are. Um, that is going to be very important. I really have mixed feelings about styrofoam, and I do have, diffusers that are styrofoam, and I can tell you that right out of the gate, if you just set them up as styrofoam, based on experience, you're gonna. I I don't think that you're diffusing even near the amount that you think you're diffusing. I think you're actually absorbing. It's doing something to where you try to imagine the sound of being locked inside an igloo. Sounds like that. That's not a good sound. Paint, right? Find a water-based paint for the styrofoam, paint them, or find something that makes the styrofoam hard, stiff. That's what we want. That would be the direction you would want to go. And that's the direction that I went. If they're made out of wood, you're good to go. And diffusers, quadratic diffusers are phenomenal. That's what you want. It'd be great. Ron, I'm under the impression that the Adante line of speakers by ELAC that you reviewed did not perform well in the market. Only a few reviewers of them were made, including yours. That is true. I think I can talk about this, and if I can't, I don't care. It kind of broke my heart because I was an Adante fan, and I know that Andrew he was proud of that speaker, and he thought that that speaker turned out great. And they didn't perform well. I think there's a couple of different reasons that happened, and that's based on conversations, meaningful conversations of a lot of the rooms, demo rooms, resellers, distributors, whatever. They weren't presenting the Adantes in sound demos, even kind of sort of how Andrew would have had them do it. If you have the Adantes pointing at your ears, they will rip your head off. They will rip it right off. No more head, gone. Ears gone. Razor blades, man. There is a ton, and I mean a ton of detail resolution, a lot of stuff going on with the Adante. They're a concentric speaker. You do not want to point them at your ears. And with the Adante, one of my favorite positions was crossing the streams. And so you do an aggressive toe in to where one is actually pointing in front of you, right? It's just like this guy is skimming across your face and this one's skimming across your face. Now we're talking and you're out of that line of fire of, details, and you get this big, beautiful soundstage. Sounds freaking awesome. I think that's what happened based on conversations is people's heads were getting ripped off and people were like, man, these are bright. They don't sound very good. This isn't what especially if like all they had known up to that point was if they were getting ready to step up from like the debut or the Unify. Quite a bit different, voicing in both of those speakers, especially the debut, like kind of warm and, has quite a bit of punch. And you get into these Adantes and it's like you're now driving, a sports car. It's like, whoa, holy cow. So I think that's what happened, Christian. I'm pretty sure. Whoa. Hold on a second, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, we have YouTube greatness that has just entered this live stream. And we will speak about it with great reverence. My friend, my colleague, my mentor. It's funny how the tables have turned. My mentor, my friend, my colleague, my champion, the one and only Chief with an F, Audio Man. There he is. How do I install printer drivers on my Windows 98 machine? Oh, you got me. You got a real chuckle out of me, buddy. Oh, man. Hey, you know what? I should mention this. Can you guys do me a favor? I was talking to Randy the other day, and he was saying, "Hey man, did you watch my video about going to Emotiva?" And I was like, "Nah, man, you put out like 17 videos a day, and it's hard to keep up." And I haven't done such a great job of keeping up with his videos. But he's like, "Hey man, you sh- you ought to check that one out. See what you think." I watched that video, and it knowing what it takes to do that video, knowing what it takes and to do it as well as Randy did it, man, it is just a great, entertaining, interesting, fun video. And I've I've always been a bit neutral about how I feel about Emotiva. Not anymore. After watching that, I was like, I really like Emotiva. I haven't even spent a whole lot of time with their products, barely any time, and I respect and I like them as a company. They have my respect at how they treat their employees, and you I don't want to give it away. Watch that video. It is a masterclass on how you do a video well like that. It's perfection. Yeah. I have to mention that. So, hey Ron, thank you for all the content. What are your feelings around bookshelf versus tower speakers in relatively small rooms? Is there a legit reason to chain yourself to bookshelf? Yeah, there is a legit reason, and it's space, it's room. Um, there are some dodo birds out there that will tell you, room size doesn't matter, and you can pack in refrigerator boxes size speakers in there, and it's going to sound awesome. I'm going to tell you, they are just trying to sell you speakers. Uh, you need to you need to treat the room with respect. It's sacred ground, and so if the space is relatively smaller, I do think that you're gonna have a better time moving in the direction of, appropriate speakers, appropriate size speakers. Um, eh, just like that. We have two of the coolest cats, YouTube celebrities, Chris, the Vinyl Attack. If audiophiles could just get out of their own way, they'd see that you can put measurements and sound side by side. It's a shame that there is so much division online, at least. Amen to that. Yes. Yeah. I don't think that it needs to be an us versus them or an us and them type conversation. I think that we can all just have different opinions and be okay with it and be adults about it. It's like a lot of folks might watch some of my recent videos and think, yeah, oh, I'm trekking with this guy. This is a guy that just hates, yeah, these guys that believe that cables can make a difference. Actually, I think cables might make a difference. So like there's that. It's like, but I'm not gonna sit there and, like, freak out about it or shout from the rooftops, and there's good reasons for it because, as I've said so many times before, if if they do, I can tell you this much, that there's 17 things that you can do with your system long before we get to that conversation that will make a far more profound difference, a far more wow difference. That's like fine tuning, man, and it's optional for a lot of systems. So, yeah. All right. Sarah's gonna be home in a minute, so I gotta finish up. Just want to give you kind of like a 5-minute warning, if you will. Hey Ron, thanks for all your content. What are your feelings? Oh, I just did that one. What do modern what do modern recording studios record to? A computer? Yeah, most of the time it would be a computer. Um, most of the time it would be a some type of a computer type device. Um, I suppose that in some situations, if we're talking about modern day stuff, you might have a dedicated recorder in there, but I doubt it. Most of them are using like a digital audio workstation. It's called a DAW, which is it's a computer software. That's your workstation, and that's what they're recording to. Yeah. All right, let's take a look here. I'm going to try to grab just a couple more. Um, digitally generated sounds have come a long way, baby. CT Warmuth, digitally generated sounds have come a long way, baby. I often wonder if most folks' reference point for an opinion on digital sound isn't skewed by how it sounded 20 years ago compared to today's tech. Yes, absolutely valid and absolutely true. A lot of audiophiles felt this sting when MoFi Gate happened, where it was revealed that all of these records that we've been, buying and that we thought were perhaps analog from Mobile Fidelity are indeed digital. We freaked out, man. And, it's funny, like I was one of those guys where I was like, yeah, there's a reason to freak out. And maybe it has to do more with deception than how the records actually sound, because every single one of those albums, to my ears, well, not every one, but many of them sound incredible, and they're digital. So thank you, Chris. You are totally right. 100%. All right. Also, I am decidedly not an audiophile, so don't argue with me. Laugh out loud. Chris is not an audiophile. That is true. Sovereign Acoustics. Ron, your channel has entertained me and helped me in life, such as your straightforward advice. Just say it like it is. In my mind, you have become the 21st century Bob Ross like vibe. Peace. Hey, man, thank you. I appreciate that. I can only hope and pray that I'm half the man as Bob Ross. If you haven't seen the Bob Ross documentary on Netflix, check it out. That will bring you to tears, and you'll be like, that guy was a hero. Holy cow. What a great guy. I appreciate that. It's a very nice thing to say. All right. I think we're going to close up shop. Hour and 40 minutes. I had a great time. Just to recap, for those that made it to the very end, if it seems as if, especially with those two videos, that I am being negative or condescending, I owe you an apology. I don't want you to feel like that's where that is going. As I described in this video, sometimes I kind of get into a character depending on what I'm talking about. I'm paying attention to my pace, how I say things. It might be confused with confidence. I don't want anybody to be upset about those videos. And more than that, far more than that, I don't want anybody to be discouraged. If some of your records, favorite albums, Soundstage is fake and it even sounds fake, but it sounds good to you, that is the only thing that matters. That's the only thing that matters. It's all that matters. Just enjoy it for what it is. Again, just to recap, the point in making the Soundstage as a live video was to help you guys understand that when I'm rambling about Soundstage, it starts with the right recording to give me that illusion. Not every single track, not every single recording that I have in my library just magically gives me this Soundstage. I'm trekking down the same road that you are, and there are times where it doesn't sound real and it doesn't sound three-dimensional at all. So that's that. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Subscribe if you haven't. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video.